glass systems and evacuation route planning that were non-existent. So the structural as well as systematic policy management of what needs to be done to manage a building of this importance could not be done by Parliament. The fire safety deficiencies also the report indicated that these critical issues constitute a comprehensive slate of what remedial actions that needs to be outlined, and these measures encompass, amongst others, the urgent implementation of recommendations from the BDO report, the security risk assessments that were conducted by SABC, and the swift appointment of dedicated head of security, which I've already outlined. So SABC undertook some work further in 2018 around risk assessment, the BDO report, the establishment of active security committee, and the implementation of recommendation from internal audit reports related to security management and the SHE unit of Parliament, safety, health, and environment priorities. So an exhaustive evaluation of fire compliance for all parliamentary buildings, guided by a qualified fire engineer, will have to be conducted, and a coherent plan will be designed and implemented. That's the key recommendation to deal with the physical aspects, that a detailed and exhaustive evaluation of all parliamentary buildings will have to be undertaken to ensure that we have a coherent plan that will be designed for Parliament and implemented as part of the overall security of Parliament. That's the core thrust of the report on that aspect. On the issue of recommended consequence management, in cases where there would have been breaches attributable to persons who may have been role players and charged with those responsibilities, and so on. In that case, the report recommends that 5 officials were found to be responsible and or implicated in a number of areas that constituted these failures, including failures to implement security policies, failures on compliance, and also ensuring general management of Parliament, including security committees. Regarding the role of other stakeholders, knowing that Parliament on its own is an institution, that is a national key point, but the principal department responsible for managing these is the Department of Public Works, which many of these things pertain to in terms of physical aspects, and also SABC on those cases where we have managed. So in those cases of the role of other stakeholders, in the failures that led to the security breach and fire incidents in January, it is recommended that the findings related to their involvement be disclosed in an appropriate forum. Additionally, consequential management and remedial actions will then be determined and taken to address those. The report does make reference to those insofar as those departments and agencies are concerned. So in light of the identified fire safety deficiencies, a comprehensive approach is proposed to rectify these issues, including a rational fire design for our institution, a detailed risk assessment, the enhanced fire safety systems, and regular maintenance by competent contractors. As we know, these issues would require that they be undertaken in a dual way, dealing with the buildings that we have at the moment, but also taking into account the reconstruction work of Parliament, so that some of the things that were deficient from a structural design, those matters are attended to as part of the restoration project going forward. Those that can be attended to regardless of restoration will be acted upon, and those that would be part of the restitching of the building, those would also be addressed at that time. On the security enhancements that are also deemed indispensable and are being actively addressed, underscoring their importance, to bolster security measures, a significant step already has been established in terms of elevation of the role of the security of Parliament. Instead of it being at a juniorized level, we have now since reviewed the role to make sure that security of Parliament is amplified, elevated, to make sure that reporting accountabilities are commensurate and consistent with the type of organization that Parliament is. So some of these issues around investigations funding, they also underscore the urgency of implementing measures to fortify security and safety protocols within Parliament. The safety and security of Parliament's occupants are paramount, and these actions will ensure that the constitutional right of members and staff and any visitors are not compromised. So the development of a detailed security strategy for Parliament will be the task of the Secretary to Parliament, and working with the new head of security of Parliament as a matter of urgency. On the areas of further work that was asked by the Audit Committee of Parliament to look at matters related to procurement of Parliament, appointments, and recruitment. And these are matters that predate myself in the institution, but evidently they did require the Audit Committee as an oversight body to direct to the person who now occupies the role to look at those matters that were brought to their attention, either through hotlines, either through labor, and either through walks in the internal audit. So again, a comprehensive assessment of these matters was done, and there were several concerning trends and issues that came to light, highlighting the need for reforms and stricter adherence to regulations and policies of Parliament. The investigation also delved into three critical areas, as I have mentioned, recruitments and appointments and procurement processes. And there were also noteworthy findings that were also picked up around these matters. There were a number of appointments that had concerns that were raised, where a number of officials were appointed without meeting minimum requirements, and that existing employees were also given preferences. And these allegations were raised by whistleblowers as well as NEHAU, the union that also prompted a thorough examination of those matters. The report also focused on recruitment and appointment processes in certain management positions in Parliament. It was found that in some instances, employees did not possess minimum qualifications as advertised, and in some cases, they were also not the recommended top-rated candidates. So in that case, about 35 cases were analyzed, and it also revealed that about 11 appointments revealed significant concerns. These concerns highlighted a lack of proper record keeping for documents, recurring patterns of non-compliance, minimum job requirements, and so on, and the use of results in certain instances that showed inconsistencies, and also areas where investigation also identified the appointment of acting officials without necessary qualifications, possibly indicating a reasonable sense of bias towards internal or acting appointments, employee. The recruitment process itself was found to be unfair and prejudicial to other candidates, with some appointments being approved despite these irregularities. That's broadly the summary of those matters. There were also instances where there were strategic positions that were examined around these particular matters, and findings did indicate that there were instances where those breaches were sustained. So given the overlaps amongst these cases, further scrutiny is now required to determine the full extent of involvement of employees of Parliament. In that case, 6 officials have been implicated in various cases. The identified non-compliance on these policies range from HR policies, code of conduct, failure to conduct fair, equitable processes, neglecting to assess suitability of candidates, and so on. But essentially, Parliament's policies and procedures, rules and regulations, what these findings indicate, they underscore the critical need for strict adherence of these policies and the need for policies of Parliament to be reviewed to make sure that they are benchmarked against best practices, but also are suitable for the nature of the institution called Parliament. This work is currently being done by the management of Parliament to go through all policies with the intention to benchmark amongst the best in South Africa and elsewhere, but also to ensure Parliament can retain talent, can attract the best talent, and remain a competitive employer in the labor market space. So the policy review aspects remain very critical around this area, including finalization of the long outstanding issue of organizational redesign of Parliament, which management of Parliament is deeply engaged on at the moment. On procurement processes, again, a number of issues that were brought to the audit committee also pertained to a number of significant instances of non-compliance with regulations and standards, but notable issues, inconsistent adherence to dates, closing dates of bids, the times, inadequate rotation of bid committee members, lack of controls, identification of service providers in the databases, irregular use of existing contracts, and the absence of legal vetting before procurement. Furthermore, contract extension occurred without specific requirements or regulations guiding price threshold, and there was a lack of oversight in many of these instances on the supply side. On the area of work pertaining to matters that were also brought to the attention of the institutions that were reported is matters pertaining to the legislative sector support that also revealed several instances of non-compliance with critical legislation and regulatory requirements. There has been areas where breaches around financial management of Parliament and supply chain were found, and key areas also issues around fairness, competitiveness, and transparency as required. So the issue of these matters pertain to execution of work that relate to international commitments of grant funding for Parliament from the European Union, and also how our policies are so misaligned, policies of Parliament and policies that needs to be undertaken using the conditional grant of LSS. So policies of Parliament have also been identified that they need to be reviewed because they indicate deficiencies in terms of not ensuring established guidelines are adhered to. To address this, it was recommended that LSS establish and adheres to a formal procurement policy in line with the South African laws. There was also an issue of reliance with the EU procurement rules, which did not align with the South African constitutional and parliamentary requirements. The procurement processes lacked clear procedures, with decisions often reduced to mere noting by the accounting office. No formal database or structured approach to selecting service providers, and no evidence of independent conflict of interest checks or due diligences in examining those. So again, the supply chain management processes of Parliament failed to assist LSS to be able to discharge its responsibilities properly. The report also suggested that a comprehensive assessment of the roles played by officials be undertaken, a comprehensive assessment to determine any accountabilities and identify areas of improvement. These findings also underscore the need for that sector business unit to rectify its non-compliant practices to ensure alignment with legislative and regulatory requirements so that we can safeguard Parliament's financial integrity and reputation. As I've said, all policies of Parliament are currently undergoing review, including all SCM policies, and these will be looked at in that context. In that case, there will be 6 officials that will be engaged further to make sure that these issues are identified as areas of improvement, including any areas where there may be recommendations for accountability. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, these findings emphasize the necessity of revisiting the current procurement regulations of Parliament to make sure that they enhance transparency and accountability. The investigation also highlighted several areas within Parliament's operation that require immediate attention and reform. It underscores the need for stricter adherence to regulation, transparency, and fairness in recruitment appointment and procurement. Parliament is committed to addressing these issues promptly and thoroughly to uphold the highest standards that the institution is required to do. The findings also have illuminated critical areas related to security maintenance of Parliament, the safety that demands immediate attention, and remedial measures around that. Furthermore, examination into the Parliament processes around appointment processes, procurement practices, have also exposed significant risk that will require that reforms of policies be done to ensure that there is no inconsistencies on matters of this nature. While transparent accountability remain paramount on the dissemination of detailed investigation report, it is also important to prudently note that Parliament itself needs to protect the ongoing processes and legal consideration and ensure that the safety and security of Parliament's occupants continues to be of paramount importance. Thank you very much.